For the love of fall, Starbucks pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin cream cold brews are back. Smooth espresso dashed with pumpkin pie spice and velvety whipped cream. Or cold brew topped with pumpkin cream cold foam fit for the season. Your pumpkin awaits. Order today in the Starbucks app.
In a world where everyone was forced to leave the comfort of their homes to get drinks, one hero emerged. Its name was Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery. And it allowed everyone to compare prices on the biggest selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered in under 60 minutes. All they needed to do was download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com to take destiny in their hands. Dun dun dun.
Welcome, everyone, to our podcast for a little bit of Bradiness. Very excited about today. We're going to be picking out the second episode of our Hawaiian trilogy. Whenever I float back to this time in our lives, I'm thinking about picking up a ukulele or a surfboard or throwing a tiki on. And, excuse me, we need to introduce ourselves. I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are
the real Brady Bros.
So, Chris, this has been fun, hasn't it? Diving into the Hawaiian episodes, all the guest stars that we've had, and at least for us, 3 of the more memorable shows of our entire 5-year run, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, these are classics. Even from my perspective, it represented freedom for us because we got out of the set. We got to go to Hawaii. I don't know if living my own life without the Bradys, how long it would have been before I visited the island there.
And what a great way to
fabulous.
go, all expense paid, and a great hotel, and nice rooms, and per diems.
Unfortunately, we had to work, and most of the show revolved around us.
It was like a travel log.
Yeah, but look you got to spend an entire week before we started filming.
True.
I was there at, I think I was 13 or 14, and I had, my mom there. I had a leash, and we had very little time. If you recall, I mean, the time there maybe was 5 days, I think, in the islands.
Yes, we did. But I recall now that I have my nights free.
And you had your nights
free. People looking, over me, and, like I said, no leash. The
girls had long periods of holds. And holds, for anyone out there, means that in the day's schedule from a period of time, you're not going to work at all. But we were working every day and all the time. So I didn't have any chance to really view the island or enjoy any kind of tourist activity outside of what we did with the cast and on the show. But I'd go back and enjoy the island on my own, of course, and continue to do so because it's such a lovely place. But this episode is memorable, not just because we went to Hawaii, but because it was our second 3-parter, because we got to work with Vincent Price. It was just it was great. It was a great experience. And we're asked about Hawaii all the time. And
quite a bit.
We're always asked what our favorite episode is. And it's always, I know this is a trilogy. There's 3 episodes, but we blend them all together and we say the Hawaii episodes.
So right? Vincent Price will make an appearance later on in this episode. In the first episode, we had Don Ho. Don is, was Hawaiian Elvis. I mean, he was a huge star. Worked over at the hotel there on Oahu for 30 years. Always sold out. Always popular. That was a lot of fun. Plus the surfing, and we also got to explore some of the history of the islands and some of the superstitions. Hence, the tiki became a really good device for sharing some of the thoughts and the history of the Hawaiian islands and the people.
We'll do more of that today. Actually, we're going to get into that a little bit. So today we are talking and reminiscing about the second of our Hawaiian episodes, the 3-part trilogy. This episode titled "Pass the Taboo." It was the second aired episode of season 4. The episode first aired September 29, 1972, and it was the 74th Brady Bunch episode to air.
Now, September 29th, that's just a day short of my birthday, and that would have been my 18th birthday.
So this September, this will have been 50 years ago.
Wow.
50 years. Wow. So we're remembering stuff that happened from a different life, from a younger life. I look at myself on screen and say, man, yeah.
So Bobby had found coming up to this episode, Bobby had found the tiki, and then stuff started happening. The wall decoration almost fell on him. Then with Alice, it was hurting her back while she was learning how to hula, which was hysterical all by itself. And then, of course, out in the surfing contest,
You wiped
out into a coral head, which was actually much more frightening in life than it even appeared on the screen.
And that's the cliffhanger of the first episode.
So we start this episode with me. I'm still holding my breath for the whole week. Will I be okay or not?
We do see him in at the end of the previous episode, head out of the water, at least swimming, maybe poorly, but conscious. So we don't have to wait an entire week thinking that Greg was dead.
Standards and practices.
I would have hoped that we could have done the "is Greg dead" part, but nobody was asking me. Nonetheless, we come back to this episode, and now Greg is out of the water, looking a little groggy, and of course the entire family coalescing around him.
Well, everybody ran out into the water. That was. Do you remember having to do that? The whole family ran. Dad, of course, ran out and swam to me to bring me in. But everybody was up to their knees in the water, waiting around. Yeah,
I can't remember exactly what I did, but I don't think I was the first this time to greet you and save you. I don't know what I would have.
I came in without. I wasn't wearing the tiki anymore.
No, because you lost the tiki. What's interesting now? Let's talk about this tiki for a second. So this tiki has brought some kind of magic to any wearer of it in the first episode. And every time Bobby he doesn't look at his bad luck. For instance, when Greg recognizes he no longer is wearing the tiki in his groggy state, once he gets out of the water, he confesses to Bobby, I lost your tiki. It's not on me anymore. And Bobby says, well, it was a good thing you were wearing it. And that's an interesting thing about bad luck, because it's really easy to flip it on with your perspective and make perhaps what happened good luck, like it could have been worse. And we'll find out in this show that ultimately it's decided that the thing is definitely filled with bad luck.
Not anymore.
That this episode is chock full.
Fortunately, Alice had the foresight to ask Jan to go back and check the shore, make sure we didn't leave any towels or beach equipment, and she recovers the tiki. So the beat of the tiki goes on.
And right before that, though, as we're gathered together, concerned for Greg, finding out that Greg is not hurt, although he's hurting all over, and has some abrasion on the back of your head that we never really see
explored,
but concerning enough to Mike and Carol that Mike says, "We'll take Greg to the hotel doctor." Is that a thing? Do hotels have a resident doctor? It's not like it's Love Boat. I mean, there's not a doctor.
They do on the cruise ships. They have a whole little
we're not on a
ship
cruise
hospital.
Ship. We're on an island.
But at the hotel, it'd be more like probably like first aid. They would be someone in a capacity that could say, hey, you really need to go to get a stitch or get this done or get that done. This is where you go and facilitate.
But
direction.
He said doctor. We go see the hotel doctor. That must have been a thing. Okay, so hotels had doctors, and Greg was going to go get checked out by a doctor. But we come back as the girls are cleaning up the beach. They send Jan to the water to find out if the family has left anything behind. Which is funny, because the only other family that I've known that has sent family members to go check the water for anything left behind is my wife's family. Because of the kids in the family playing at the surf with all their dolls, populating the entire sandfront with mermaids and a little pony and that are all floating in the gentle surf of Florida's Gulf, so that it's not just completely washed away. But that's where Jan is sent, and luckily for her, she stumbles upon this tiki. It seems like the tiki is stuck to the Bradys, because this is the second time that it's fallen and been found by a household member. So she puts the tiki into her bag. And I got to tell you, in this show, the bags are almost a subplot, because
a lot of close-ups on the bags, aren't there?
All the girls have bags,
Bags, beach bags.
And of course, in Jan's bag, well, we'll find out. It's going to occur here, right? Because we get back from the beach, we're at the hotel, and what's going to happen next? Oh, we come to Mike and Carol in the bedroom, their hotel room.
Right.
There's
a big painting of Diamond Head.
Like a terrible painting
on the wall.
Diamond. That's their view of Diamond Head. Supposedly, it's a psych out there. It's a painted, scrim, if you will, to make it look like you're looking out at a view of Diamond Head. But if you look closely, it's. I mean, look at high definition television has done that psych no good turn because it's clearly obvious that it's a bad rendering of Diamond Head.
Chris, that might have even been one of the scenes that was filmed after we returned to the mainland. They did the interior.
It was because all the spider stuff was done back here, stateside. Right. Yeah, anyway, it was a cute scene. The scene between, Mike and Carol about Carol identifying for Mike some jewelry in a shop window down in the hallway, which actually was a nice little plot point because it will play later. The show was written again by Tam Spiva, and he made a nice little plot twist here with this discussion of some jewelry that'll later come in handy for a nice little turn of a joke in a follow-on scene. But what we find out is that when Jan was cleaning up at the beach, a spider crawled into her bag, right? So now the bag is on the bed and the spider...
Not just a spider, Chris. The tarantula.
Yeah, huge tarantula.
He was that was an actor tarantula. He was coming fresh off of the James Bond movie. Kidding.
You would think.
A very experienced tarantula.
I mean, how many tarantula wranglers did they interview for this job?
I don't know, but there was someone there to wrangle the spider whenever he was on set.
Now there are wolf spiders, and apparently the spider that they used was a species of wolf spider, which I guess is a relative to a tarantula. There are wolf spiders in Hawaii, but only on Kauai, and they're very rare and live in caves and are blind. Nonetheless, we'll take some liberties because there are plenty of spiders in Hawaii and poisonous ones.
As we will see, that spider could have swum all the way to Oahu because at one point he waltzes out of the purse in the room, across the bedspread, falls on the floor, goes out the door, makes a right, takes the elevator down 2 floors to the boys' room, and somehow this spider seemed to make a beeline for the boys' room. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of odd how it was in the girls' room, right?
Yeah, I think
and it crawls out of Jan's bag, and then we'll meet up with the spider a little bit later in the boys' room, up close and comfortable with Peter, which was a very memorable moment. Matter of fact, one of my favorite lines of all time. But I would love to use it as a salutation when signing autographs or photos. But it's really not appropriate, and that is bad luck. Come and get me. It's not one of those things you want to write on a photo.
It's not quite as light as Brady on.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like you have a sunshine day, it's like, or, advice, don't play ball in the house might be more useful. But yeah, but it was one of my, my favorite lines. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Jan has taken this bag that now has a spider in it for quite a walk, quite a tour of the island. They look like they're visiting Sea Life Park, right? And she makes these really broad attempts to get into her bag. Wants to take a picture to grab her camera, which it's aborted because Marcia says, "No, I'll use my camera," and taking a picture then of Jan. And at another time, she's reaching into her bag, to get a tissue to help Marcia with her foggy. What was that? What is that thing? Those spy glasses that they have at tourist places to look out at the coastline.
Telescopes.
Yeah, she's needing help on cleaning the lenses and asks Jan for a tissue or something.
But all that's pretty believable because in that bag, we're seeing towels, we're seeing clothes, we're seeing things like that. And a spider would typically want to get down and burrow in,
and get crushed.
And get underneath and then stay off to the side.
Well, I mean, but did you notice that we went from tiki sound to spider sound?
Ooh, give me the spider sound.
I'm terrible with melody. So it was just a different riff than we had now become accustomed to.
It wasn't this, was it? Bottom.
No.
Bottom.
Oh, no, it wasn't. No, that'd be a couple years later. If the spider had a fin on its back, perhaps they would have copied us. But no, I can't recall. It was ominous, ominous. And every time she reaches into her bag, we hear this sound, like we used to every time we saw the tiki. In any case, so when the spider now escapes the bedroom, the girl's bedroom, what do we find next? What goes on next?
Well,
we passed a whole one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Oh, well, let's not do that.
This is when,
does this have to do with going to the beach?
This is when we were at the beach. I guess this is when the girls are picnicking, right? Because you decide that for the boys, or we all decided together, we don't want to go on the picnic. And no one really puts up much of a fuss that we're not going to do the family outing.
Well, I wanted to be on the beach and in Greg language, check out the chicks.
Right, which you do pretty obviously.
I was thinking that it looked a little
creepy,
slime ball to me.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa, okay.
Clearly, Greg's,
like it's like I'm not even trying to get a personality or anything. It's just like it's all the picture.
It's like how like how to be creepy. Looks
creepy.
Like
that was what I was thinking of.
Greg could write the book. I mean, how to invade personal space and be inappropriate. In some way, you were acting out, I think, fantasies of Lloyd, that he could have gotten away with something like that. When he was 15 or 16 years old, he probably sat on a towel thinking, I want to go up and talk to that girl. Can I just ask her to rub some lotion on her shoulder? And maybe he did it. And it wasn't nearly as odd as Greg doing it, because you look like, a...
well, I go over and I introduce myself.
No, you don't. You do not introduce yourself.
I lie to her right away.
You lie right away that you are from the islands. She's from the States, and ask you if you are. And you say no.
I immediately want to protect her.
Can I rub some
suntan
lotion on you?
Right.
And if, I can't believe that she agrees, but you're kind of really
immediately
close to her.
She says, "Oh, sure."
Yeah. Who are you? Because later, now all of a sudden, the part that I really loved about the relationship that they had now built between the boys, Peter especially, and Greg, was he was always going to get in your way, kind of innocently. Maybe not so innocently.
Not really innocently.
Yeah,
no.
right. And so in this scene, that's right there, right? We're going to come up as Greg's got his almost private moment on a public beach with the statesider. By the way, the actress, her name was Chris Callow, played the part of Mandy. So she's there all happy. I mean, there was no look on her face as though she was, certainly upset or taken aback by your
it's like
her face.
Completely normal and natural thing to do is sit down on the beach in a bikini, have a stranger come over and start rubbing her back with suntan lotion.
Now, as I was beginning to feel that Greg didn't have any understanding of personal space, in comes Peter with as little understanding of personal space as Greg did, because he's now right up nearly against her at her back. And and it's like, I guess the Bradys, the Brady boys haven't yet learned how to give people some personal space. And it's then we introduce ourselves, and then she asks who you are.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And you had to
Did you notice how irritated I was by you guys? Truly irritated. I was
so
like,
that wasn't acting?
I was mad. Well, I'm going to tell you a story that you don't know. I played a really rotten April Fool's Day joke on my brother. My brother had a girlfriend. She was like 3 years. He was 3 years older than me, and he had a girlfriend, and they did like heavy petting stuff and like that. And he tells me that because my parents weren't at home, he was there, that he was going to go down the street to her house and be there for the afternoon, and don't bother him. Just don't bother him. So I said to myself, how can I get him? First, I agreed. Oh, no, I wouldn't bother you. But the idea was planted in my brain. So I thought, and I said, I have just the thing. This will be so funny. I'm going to call him up. It's about 45 minutes later. I'm going to call him up and tell him our dog, the family dog, died. And then when he gets here, I'll go April Fools, and he will just burst out laughing. So I'm going through the whole thing.
How old are you at this time?
Crying. Oh gosh, 9.
Okay, well, it makes sense for a 9-year-old. It makes good sense.
And so, and I'm go. You gotta hurry. You gotta hurry. I don't know what's gonna the dog. And so he shows up. the dog comes out, from under the table, wagging her tail and saying hello and, all smiley. And Scott looks at the dog and he looks at me and April Fools. At which point
he punched you.
He began to chase me through the house. I made it to the outside. I couldn't go any further. I turned around and he hit me so hard in the stomach, I couldn't breathe for 30 seconds. I didn't know what had happened. All the wind was taken out of it. And I was just dumbfounded with how much it hurt, and I had to walk it off and come back, and he was yelling and all this stuff and slamming doors on his way out. And now, of course, I'm left at home alone. And
no protection.
Yeah, no protection. But I had a chance to think it through, like I tried to think it through from his point of view. And it was a stupid thing to do, obviously. He wanted to be down there, be with his girlfriend. And, here I am coming in with this lame prank. So from that point forward, I always thought that interrupting your older brother when he's trying to make a move on somebody is a really rotten thing to do. And now I got to act the whole thing out. It was my sense memory. It was the years of acting lessons just coming through, channeling themselves. And here comes not just my little brother, but my little brother's little brother too.
Right. Okay.
And I was mad. And I played it mad. I didn't play it funny. I was just there, I guess, trying to complete the experience.
I think, I learned that when you upset your older brother, run and don't stop running.
Yeah.
Till dinner. That's how I survived.
I couldn't get through the backyard. He got me.
But the fact is, in that, there's a sense of humor that it was lost in that moment with your brother.
Yeah.
And if he's worth his salt, it's not going to destroy the relationship, and there'll be another opportunity. Nobody in your family should make things easy for you. That's what makes you better at being a player.
I'm not sure we ever got there entirely, to tell you the truth.
I just thought all us Bradys were a little handsy. Do you think today, if that scene was written, any of that could be done?
No, I absolutely don't. There's so many things. I mean, even with the lecherous Greg, checking out every bikini that walks by him.
And in fact, Dad is reinforcing that because his comments to Carol are about doing the same thing.
Yeah, he wants to do the same thing, but
yeah, take it in context. The fact is that his joking around like that was probably something that you more or less had an ability to get away with.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, that was a kind of the style and the humor. And I mean, do you remember how many of the men on the set, the lighting guys or sound guys or even assistant directors that they're unbuttoned to just above their belly button, and they've got 8 chains around their necks and bracelets. I mean, that was it was supposed to be very suave and masculine.
A work environment, and that becomes and had become over the years a men's club of sort. We've come a long way. And becoming more sensitive to our behavior towards those we love. And those we don't even know of the opposite sex. So, I mean, it's I'm glad we're at, because it just looks creepy. I know the Bradys are innocent, so you can get away with it, but it looked a little creepy. But I love the fact that it was exactly what I would have done. As a brother, do everything I can to annoy and or get in the way of whatever my brother was up to. and to tell on them.
You had plenty of your own experiences at home with that too, didn't you?
We're about survival in my house. Yeah. Literally, I learned to run and just keep running until dinner. And then, of course, my mom, if we ever got in a fight, you know what she did? Because my mom was home. Unlike yours, you didn't have anybody there to protect you. You would think, my mom is home. My mom is there to protect me. She would just say, go outside and do that. It's like he's going to beat the shit out of me. He's going to do that outside now. So, I mean, I just literally ran for hours for just didn't come home until I knew dinner was on the table, and then Dad was around, and perhaps I'd have some modicum of protection, but he'd get me back. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the show. All right. So we're off the beach
this is
now.
the show. There's no getting back to it. This is the show.
Sorry for the trauma.
Half of everybody out there knows this plot.
I didn't know at the time that you were channeling,
my older brother. Yeah.
You were channeling your brother, though, not even you're releasing yourself of some kind of guilt by now playing his role, I guess.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was using him for sense of memory. How would my brother feel about this? Oh, that's right. Mad. Really, really, really mad.
It's nice not getting beat up anymore. Anyway, so we are learning now at this point in the show. We have a meeting with David, our representative from the construction company, who's driving us all around.
Right.
That we ask him about the tiki, and he is an islander, and he tells us about tikis and taboo. We learned the word taboo and what taboo means. We diss it at first, right? He even disses it. As an islander, he disses it as old superstitions. And which is weird because, for as long as I've been going back to Hawaii, the whole cultural, the significance of their culture is up front, is right there, and needing to respect it and honor it. So we weren't at all. And I'm wondering if that is because it wasn't as upfront. I know now you don't take anything out of the ocean. You don't move a rock. You don't take anything home with you in respect for the island culture.
Well, there are many resorts and around the world too, where there are reefs like there are on the Hawaiian Islands, where they don't encourage and discourage and sometimes will not allow you to go into the water with sunscreen on.
Right. Well, now that's becoming an issue for the turtles that live, in that region or other wildlife there.
Right.
Obviously, with our impact being learned, retrospectively, we then change our behavior because, unfortunately, we have done some damage.
By the 80s, you really couldn't even ride those turtles anymore.
For the love of fall, Starbucks pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin cream cold brews are back. Smooth espresso dashed with pumpkin pie spice and velvety whipped cream. Or cold brew topped with pumpkin cream cold foam fit for the season. Your pumpkin awaits. Order today in the Starbucks app.
In a world where everyone was forced to leave the comfort of their homes to get drinks, one hero emerged. Its name was Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery. And it allowed everyone to compare prices on the biggest selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered in under 60 minutes. All they needed to do was download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com to take destiny in their hands. Dun dun dun.
There's a lot of superstition in the island cultures and the whole Polynesian culture.
Very interesting.
Tabu, kapu all mean, bad luck. And everything in Hawaii is imbued with this sense of ritual and sanctity. And I know today you respect their culture. And I was just surprised at how much that wasn't evident in this episode, and literally wondering whether or not that was just a sign of the times. That because Hawaii, not that we were just opening up Hawaii in the early 70s, certainly a lot of cultural exchange had occurred in the 30 years since World War II, but real tourism had just started becoming real in Hawaii at that point. And I'm sure tourists like myself didn't know anything about island culture.
We didn't. I think there was a combination, Chris, of both arrogance and ignorance. There was no educating done about being respectful of other cultures. We were basically Americans, and it was now part of America. We could do whatever we pleased. And those things that were native to the islands, those things that were native to our Native Americans. We were not really
sensitive,
educated in, or sensitized, or understood, or tolerant. It's arrogant.
And I believe that was, well, you're seeing in these episodes, because I am certain, as beloved as we are in Hawaii because of the attention that the Bradys brought to Hawaii, that now I look at it and realize that, and they're ignoring part of the plot line in these shows, because Hawaiians are fiercely proud of their traditions.
Yes, and I think there are many that really, really appreciated the attention we brought to the islands. But I know from firsthand experience that there are many Hawaiians that did not appreciate all that attention coming their way. They weren't trying to encourage mainlanders to come, except in the tourism industry, which is a very wealthy part of the money that comes through, but not so much the living part.
In any case, today, if we were to do something similar to this, we would be sensitive to the cultural heritage that we're guests to.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, it's all about a tiki, and a tiki in this particular case is taboo, bad luck, because it's apparently associated with the first king. And we learn from...
And a burial ground.
We ask David where we can find this old gentleman, who he tells us is a person who knows about the cultural heritage of Hawaiians, and his name is Mr. Hanalei. And then we ask that we need to go visit him, and he gets down in the dirt and starts trying us a map, like we know where we're at. Okay, take a left turn here. But our next scene, visiting with Mr. Hanalei, and a great little scene, a touching little scene that played very real. And this gentleman telling us about the lore and the tiki that we have and where it comes from. Now, how he knew where it comes from, I don't know. And that some warrior in the past had taken it from a burial site and died as a result, but that needs to go back. And the only way we can now dispose of this bad luck is to return it to whence it came. Not from where we found it, but from where that warrior found it.
Let me check it out. Didn't we finally determine that maybe it was the tiki after the spider came into your room, crawled up and across? I think that was the thing.
No, we did. Yeah, I wore the tiki because there was a moment before I believe it's bad luck. You're right, I jumped. So going back until right after the spider leaves Jan's purse or bag.
Jan's purse falls off, crosses the carpet, goes under the door, down the hall, drops down a couple of floors, finds the boys' room and goes in.
And then after that, we see the boys in the boys' room getting, they're in their beds, ready to go to bed. And we're talking about this tiki because Bobby is now really worried that it really is bad luck
because of the wipeout.
Because of the wipeout. And he doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. And of course, Peter thinks that's stupid. And
you get the best line ever.
He throws it to me like, well, then you have it. And I put it on, and yes, I utter, bad luck, come and get me.
Oh, I love it. Boy, no better words.
Only Bobby at this point is believing this thing is bad luck. But it won't take long for all of us to realize this thing needs to...
Careful what you wish for, young man.
We got to get rid of this thing or we're going to be eaten. So this whole scene, as I remember it, was two things for me. Scary as hell, because I'm dealing with like a 6-inch spider, which I wouldn't by choice... I wouldn't touch, let alone let crawl on me. But there was this thing that was presented in this heroic deed I was about to do by letting the spider contractually crawl on me. And that was gaining cred from the girls. Basically, how could you do that? And it's like, I got to be big man. I got to puff up my chest, hiding the actual fear that existed in me in having to do it. I was told.
You did get. I got to hand it to you, Chris, because I've been telling this story wrong for the last 40 years. Because people often ask me, was it a real spider, and was there a barrier between you and the spider, like plexiglass or something else, and I said no. And I've always said that you were a real trooper. You didn't seem to be anxious about it or bothered by it. You just, real impressive and played the scene. So I had no idea all this internalizing was going on because you hit it very well.
You had to, right? I had to let it happen. But
our listeners need to know that when you're filming a scene like that, it's not just the 12 seconds that you see. I mean, this is hours of working with this spider and, trying it here, trying it there. And they actually had to guide the spider to go up your arm. Do you remember how that happened?
Absolutely, because this guy, by the way, all you listening out there, they call anybody who works with an animal a wrangler. And in this particular case, he's a spider wrangler because he's the guy that comes in with the spider. I don't know how he picks his spiders, but he got a spider. And then it's like, how do you train a spider? If it was a dog, I'd been a trained dog. But
that's a good question.
Spider.
And there's a good answer.
The spider does react to air. So the spider will move away from wind. So this wrangler is going to blow on the spider through a straw. And the spider will then move in the other direction. So what they had done is lifted the bed on blocks so that he could crawl on the side of the bed without being seen by the camera. And because the spider is now, he's not leashed. There's no invisible filament attached to him where he's being pulled in the right direction. He's crawling on his own, and he's being directed by this wind blown from 4 or 5 feet away. And if the spider started going too far one way, the wrangler would have to crawl all the way around, down to the foot of the bed, across, down, and up the other side, and then blow from the other side to push the spider back. And then from the foot of the bed to drive the spider up to where he rests. But it wasn't like there was another wrangler behind my head blowing air at the spider to keep him from crawling right up to my mouth,
But I'm sure, Chris, that you were very reassured when they informed you that the spider was harmless because his fangs have been covered up with little plastic balls, making it impossible to penetrate your skin.
So I read
Should he become angry?
I read this in your book, and your account was that he had little fang tips, like foam fang tips on. The way that it was explained to me is they had little ball bearings placed in his fangs.
Ball bearings, right? Sure, that'd work.
I
they taped them on there.
I bought it, and there was no way that the spider could bite me. Now, a more educated spider aficionado, an arachna, not phobe, but fan, would have known that this breed of spider, this species of spider, is not really aggressive. It's rather shy, and only upon it feeling its life is in danger,
like
would it
getting
really
blown
bite.
in the back with a straw.
Well, like being pressed on, like being stepped on, or like in Jan's bag. They're rather fragile, So the fact is, when we had to work with the spider, we had to remember that the spider can't be dealt with like. If he fell off, if I was rolling in bed and moving too much, I could roll right on the spider if he fell off and kill our star. So, I had to stay still. But I got to tell you, there wasn't a whole lot of acting there because, that was kind of, and I think I said 5 times, get him off me. Get him off me, get him off me, get him off me. Get him off me. It's like I just keep repeating the same line. But it's probably what I would do in real life. But because I was feeling everyone else thinking I was such a brave trooper, that charged me. I mean, that got me. That was like, wow. I was so empowered by allowing myself to do this that it allowed me to do it better, I guess. I mean, the fact is that he did crawl in the final scene kind of right on top of my my chest.
Your chest. Yeah.
And then there were scenes when he crawled off the wrong way, he was crawling around. That poor wrangler in his knees, because he crawled for hours on the ground, blowing through a straw.
So here's the deal from my side. I had some experience with tarantulas and wolf spiders, and I had one as a, quote, kind of a pet for a while, which I fed and took care of, and even did show and tell at school after we had to clear it with the teacher and then the vice principal and finally the principal, and I got to take it to school. We talked about it. So I knew a little bit about the personalities and things, and I knew for sure that I didn't want to hurt it. So when it was called for and you're screaming at me, Greg, to get it off, and I raised my shoe, and I was watching this now, and I went, no, I'm not gonna, no. And I worked this out with the wrangler, where I took my shoe and I scooped him,
flipped him
up.
You flipped him off,
and then kind of left him, legs down, but scooped him so that he would fall. And we had a blanket on the other side of the bed where he could land. And I was glad that worked. That I only remember doing once. So I was glad it worked because that's
you don't
pretty
want to
traumatic.
do that too many times to the spider.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
So that was good.
But the idea of slapping him, crushing him on my chest with the shoe did leave for a nice little comic moment about it was real. It's like, not on me, don't do that. No. What are you, foolish? Hey, come on, Greg. Get it.
Boy, those pajamas would have been in the washing machine right away. That's for sure.
I got to believe Greg would have
Splat.
he would have done it just like that, never having an intention of smashing him on Peter's chest, but would have wanted Peter to feel after that afternoon.
Well, Mike came in
Mandy.
not long after that because we're making so much noise. Mike and Carol came in, and Mike raised his shoe up too.
But he comes in and says, that when he finally acknowledges the spider, it takes him a couple of moments. They're all staring off the side of the bed at something, and he's looking at all us making all this noise, and then sees the spider,
right?
And recognize, it's a pretty big spider, and that you help him out with something to lift the spider up with, and Bobby finds a bag that had something in it, which is a nice little carryover of a plot point from earlier in their jewelry that Carol thinks
it was a
little gift bag from the hotel. And so you empty the bag, and Mike puts the spider. Luckily back then too, we were sensitive enough not to kill animals right there on screen. Maybe in the 40s we would have just smashed the damn thing.
Because 50s we probably would have been in big trouble.
Mike is going to put it in a bag and take it out. And at least I'm assuming, because we don't go that far and he doesn't make it explicit, but in my head, he's saving the spider. He's going to let it go outside.
He is going to take it outside, Chris, because he wants to get it out before Carol sees it.
Let's come back to that. Exactly. Because Carol, as he says, gets freaked out. Or I'm not sure what term he used, but she gets freaked out at the sight of a ladybug, right?
Yeah.
Hold on to that for a moment, because in sequence, what he does is he puts it in this bag and telling Peter, that I was thinking I almost died, and he says, no, there's no poisonous spiders in Hawaii, which is completely untrue. They have like
I think what he might
over
have
100
meant
species of spiders.
What he might have meant to say is they don't have snakes in Hawaii.
But now he's got this spider in the bag, carrying it through now his room that he shares obviously with Carol. And of course she sees the bag. And the last time we saw both of them, she was informing Mike about these trinkets, these jade and or coral jewelry pieces in the shop downstairs. And of course
that she looked at longingly.
So she says, are you going to put that under my pillow? Thinking that what's in the bag is a piece of jade or coral. And Mike's like, what? No. I thought that was a great little moment. But she ultimately grabs the bag from Mike and stares in it. Now, when watching that scene, it's like for a person who becomes, I would imagine, nauseous at the sight of a bug, would have fainted at the sight of a spider that big. But you watch Florence I don't think the spider was in the bag at this point, but she stares at the Carol stares into the bag. Much longer than I would have thought anybody seeing that spider that close would have allowed themselves.
You figure it could jump out at any time, right?
Well,
she's just kind of checking it out.
Yeah, and she's got the bag open for too long.
You raised an interesting question for me. What would have happened if it was Alice that Mike went by and Alice wanted to look in the bag? How would she have played it?
That'd have been.
She probably would have fainted.
7 or 8 minutes. Of physical
she
comedy.
She probably would have dropped it on the ground and started running away from it.
She would have spun,
tripping, and
she would have been on one leg and done a pirouette, throwing the bag. The spider would have been up in a fan. It would have landed on someone's head. We would have needed another week.
On a fan. That's funny.
But you're right. So that all happened, and this is what brings Bobby and Peter and Greg as well to the point of recognizing this. There's something to this tiki being bad luck, and then asking David about it. He's still saying no, there's no such thing. But if you're interested, the guy knows anything about this. Is this Mr. Hanalei? And we need to go visit Mr. Hanalei, and so he scribes out on the ground directions to Mr. Hanalei's house, which apparently we utilized because that's now the next scene. We're now sitting down with Mr. Hanalei, learning about this particular tiki and the bad luck. Now, we have to not just replace it from where we found it, which seems a little cruel. We found it at a construction site. Mm-hmm. We didn't put it in a construction site. But now we're responsible for bringing it back to where it was originally stolen 100 years earlier by some warrior, as lore goes.
Just quickly, on Mr. Hanalei, I found him to be completely believable
and charming. Absolutely,
like he wasn't acting at all. He was simply just exactly what he's doing, which is explaining the history of and the penalties for and the way that the luck worked and where it needed to go. I just thought he just seemed like a guy that lived in that little house that was there, and he came out on the porch to enlighten us. I loved him. I just thought he was a wonderful character actor.
And completely believe his belief in and spiritual connection to history and his cultural history. Because he says even his dad tells him where the burial ground is, but not to go. And he never goes. But he's going to tell you, and you are going to go, or us, which I thought was interesting. But it caused me to do a little research after watching the show, and that is Hawaii's first king. Well, Hawaii's first king is King Kamehameha. So it is of his tomb that we're talking. And fact is, there is still some question as to where his bones really lie. They were supposedly moved from where they were buried. Apparently, the ritual for the kings, their heritage and their ceremony for the burying of the king's bones is really complex. But the advisor, the one person responsible for the burying of those bones, can't let anyone know where they're at. So they bury it at night, and no one knows where this is other than this one trusted person. And the reason for that, there was a belief that anybody who found the bones could steal the mana, the strength of the king by possessing the bones. It was very important that the gravesite, the bones, wherever they're going to rest, weren't known to anyone. Ultimately, though, the lore has it that they're buried on the Big Island in a cave, interestingly. And this is probably where Tam Spiva got the idea for the tiki needing to go back to the gravesite of the first king, because there is speculation that is where the bones may still be, but were buried originally. But when he passed away, ultimately, not his son, but the next queen, who ultimately was the last queen of the dynasty and the last queen of Hawaii, had his bones removed from that tomb and brought to a shrine on Oahu. But no one really knows. No one's seen the bones. No one's able to dig up the bones. But so a part of our episode is sort of tied to real lore, although the caves are on a whole other island. There we go. Now, the boys are on it. Want to tell what happens next?
Well, we take a bus.
Yes,
How else?
When we first plot with the girls.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to tell our story.
They've got to cover for us.
They're covering for us.
We let them in on it, and they're going to cover for us. And then we get on the bus, and we go to find this trail. And literally, this bus driver drives us off, not at any kind of bus stop I've ever seen. It was like next to this, in the forest, the middle of the forest.
In the middle of the forest, with Bobby and popcorn. He's got enough popcorn for us to make a trail with. Where did he get the damn popcorn?
Whatever made him think that a trail of popcorn would last in a forest?
Right. With all the birds in the way.
Yep.
We're going to drop popcorn because we're already frightened. We're already frightened. And Peter's first thing he says after leaving the bus and onto the trail is, I bet Mom is worried about us. And I'm thinking, we just got there because Bobby still got the popcorn. He couldn't have bought it getting off the bus because we saw where that was. That was in the middle of a forest. So he got this popcorn somewhere before getting on the bus.
It was his third bag, and he ate 2 on the bus.
Well, okay, there you go. Suspension of Brady disbelief. Yeah, so now we're on our way, dropping popcorn, so we know where we're going to find our way out somehow. We learned this in a previous episode, that we got to leave it, some kind of trail behind.
The caves loom ahead.
We walk to this very strange place with these tiki gods sticking up out of the ground.
Yeah.
And where was this that we shot this?
CBS. We were not at our studio, our Paramount studio. We were over to CBS on Radcliffe in the San Fernando Valley, which was exciting because, well, let's just say it this way. This set had a lagoon and caves, and not the first time they've been on television.
Right. It was a Castaway looking.
Yes, it was. And it had an unusual tie to Sherwood Schwartz.
How about that? So this was the lagoon set from Gilligan's Island.
And caves.
Because when we did all the Hawaiian stuff up front the first week, and we came back to the States and then began to do all the inside shots, the hotel room shots and other stuff that didn't need us to be in Hawaii, because that's expensive, be there as short a period of time as possible. And part of this also was then these cave scenes, starting with the lagoon scene. And there is a well-known lagoon not too far from Hollywood that again is where they shot Gilligan's Island, and where we would then show the exterior to this cave. But I thought something was really odd to me, and I want to know whether or not it was for you. At one point, Greg sees a cave, points at it, points it out to Peter and Bobby, and we look, camera then close up, or not close up, but some kind of establishing shot of a cave. But all I see is a mountain and a tiki, but no cave. Now, I understand that there was perhaps an overlap of rock back, but it was a weird choice because it didn't indicate a cave to me. Nonetheless,
it didn't strike me. But then I knew we were going in, whether there was a cave there or not.
And luckily,
because script called for it.
The last piece of popcorn as well was thrown on the ground before we go into
just
the cave.
in time. Just in time.
And what do you see once you turn the corner and look into the cave? You see the lights on. There's lights on. You say those lights on. Somebody's here. Oh, that makes it easier to go into.
Yeah. Who could possibly be turning the lights on and off?
So now we're obviously reaching the cliffhanger to this episode, but in this front room of the cave, did you notice what was right there, front and central in it? A casket. A casket is set dressed right there, and we completely ignore it.
That's where the tiki goes.
I know. It's like, put it there and get out.
Was it like a mummy? It was like a mummy casket.
It was very decorative, kind of a wooden box.
Right.
Yeah, it looked like a casket to me. Maybe it was just a desk, but it looked like a casket. I mean, Jesus, what are we looking for if we haven't already found it? Although,
if they were looking for a kind of creepy, scary, shaking your boots kind of guy to play the professor, they found him in spades.
Right, because we'll meet the back, number one, and this will create our cliffhanger of somebody.
He's going to tie us up to some totem poles there and hold us hostage for a while.
But we're not there yet. We're still just ending in this episode. We have not met him at this end of the episode, but we just know because of the music that something bad is going to happen. And we'll get into this when we do our final of the three-parter next time. But just how pleasant a person Vincent Price was. Yeah. Unexpectedly so. Humble.
Well, sir, it has been lovely reminiscing and chatting with you today and going through all of this. It's so interesting how I never knew that you had all the things going on while the spider was on you. You held it together well. I think you got a lot of cred from the girls like you were looking for. So good on you for that. But it's fun to go through these stages and the steps and the assembly of these shows.
It is a gas reminiscing like this, and it's extra special and difficult, it being 50 years ago. So these are fond memories.
I suggest that we do it all again next week, and let's get to part 3. And until then, I'm Barry Williams,
and I'm Christopher Knight,
and we are
the real Brady Bros.